The house that was never theirs. The first sign something was wrong wasn't the text message. It was the silence. My house had always sounded alive, even when I was alone. The soft hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the hallway clock I'd bought back in '98, the creak of the second stair that everyone in the family knew to step over. But when I walked through my front door that Friday evening, suitcase still in hand, the silence felt staged. Like a room that had just been cleaned too quickly, with secrets shoved into drawers. I stood there longer than I should have, keys still dangling from my fingers, listening. Nothing. Then I noticed the smell. Not my lavender cleaner. Not the lemon polish I used on Sundays. This was something else, heavy, oily. The unmistakable scent of a man who used too much cologne and a woman who cooked with bacon grease every morning. Someone had been living here. And suddenly the text message from 2 weeks earlier came rushing back. "Don't worry, Mom. Everything's taken care of while you're gone. My name is Elaine Carter. I'm 62 years old, widowed, and I live in a 4-bedroom colonial house in a quiet Ohio suburb where people still wave at each other and complain about the same pothole every year. I raised my son here. I buried my husband here. This house is more than wood and drywall. It's my memory, my work, my proof that I survived. And someone had almost stolen it from under me. 2 weeks earlier, I had left for a long overdue road trip to Arizona. My sister had been begging me to visit since before the pandemic, and after years of postponing life for everyone else, I finally said yes. My son Mark insisted I go. "You need this, Mom," he said over dinner, pushing peas around his plate like he always did when he was nervous. "You've been stuck in this house too long." I smiled at him, the same way I had since he was 6 and afraid of thunderstorms. "This house raised you. It's not a prison." Before we begin, if you enjoy stories that touch the heart and remind us of life's quiet miracles, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. It truly helps our little storytelling family grow. Across the table sat his wife, Jessica. Jessica smiled too, but hers never reached her eyes. "Oh, Elaine," she said sweetly, "we'll keep an eye on things while you're gone. No worries at all." Something about the way she said we made my stomach tighten. Jessica and I had never fought, not openly, but tension lived between us like dust under a rug. She was polite, efficient, and always just a little too interested in things that weren't hers. My kitchen cabinets, my spare bedroom, my property taxes. "How much longer are you planning to stay in this house?" she once asked, laughing lightly like it was a joke. I laughed too, but I never answered. The first week of my trip went beautifully. Red Rocks, long talks with my sister, the kind of sleep you only get when no one needs anything from you. Then on the 9th day, I got a voicemail from my neighbor Carol. Her voice was hesitant, concerned. "Elaine, I don't want to overstep, but there are unfamiliar cars in your driveway. Been there overnight. Couple days now." I sat up in bed, heart pounding. I called Mark immediately. "Oh yeah," he said quickly. Too quickly. "Jessica's parents are visiting. Just for a bit." "Visiting?" I repeated. "Staying where?" There was a pause. "Well, at your place. You've got the room." I closed my eyes. "Mark," I said carefully, "that wasn't discussed. They needed somewhere, Mom. Just temporary." In the background, I heard Jessica's voice, sharp, irritated. "She's overreacting," she whispered, not knowing I could hear. That's when I realized. This wasn't a visit. It was a test. I didn't confront them. I didn't rush home. Instead, I did something better. I planned. Because here's what people like Jessica don't understand. You don't take advantage of someone who built everything from scratch. You don't assume kindness equals weakness. And you never move your parents into a woman's house while she's away. Unless you're ready for consequences. I returned home early. Quietly. I didn't tell Mark. I didn't tell Jessica. I parked 2 streets away and walked the rest of the distance, my suitcase rolling softly behind me. That's when I saw the moving van, parked right in front of my driveway. The logo read, Horizon Family Relocations. My hands went numb. This wasn't temporary. They weren't visiting. They were moving in. I stepped closer, heart pounding, and saw Jessica's mother directing 2 movers like she owned the place. No, that goes in the master bedroom," she said, waving her hand dismissively. She won't mind. She won't mind." I nearly laughed. Instead, I turned around and walked back to my car. Because now I had proof. And I had a plan. That night, I didn't sleep in my house. I stayed at a hotel 5 minutes away, staring at the ceiling, replaying every comment Jessica had ever made. You don't really need all this space, do you? My parents are getting older. It would just make sense. It hadn't been sudden. It had been strategic. And tomorrow I would set the trap. The next morning I sent one text. To the family group chat. Elaine, I've decided to extend my trip. Feel free to make yourselves comfortable. Jessica replied within seconds. Jessica. Oh, thank God you deserve the rest. I smiled. Because now they would make their mistake. And when they did, they wouldn't just lose access to my house. They'd lose something far more valuable. The trap is set. People assume traps are loud things. Slamming doors. Raised voices. Legal threats thrown like punches. But the most effective traps are quiet. They look like permission. They feel like comfort. And by the time you realize what you've stepped into, it's already too late. The morning after I sent that text. Feel free to make yourselves comfortable. I sat in a vinyl booth at a roadside diner just off Route 33, nursing burnt coffee and watching the entrance like it might confess something. My phone buzzed constantly. Jessica had taken the bait. She sent pictures. My couch, covered in a floral slipcover that was not mine. My dining table, crowded with unfamiliar placemats and a ceramic rooster centerpiece. My spare bedroom, my late husband's office, now holding a queen-sized bed and floral curtains. Each photo came with cheerful captions. We rearranged a little. Hope that's okay, smiling face with smiling. Mom finally feels settled. This house is perfect for family. Family. She used that word like a deed. I didn't reply. Instead, I pulled out a yellow legal pad and wrote a single sentence at the top. What do they think they're entitled to? Because entitlement always leaves fingerprints. And fingerprints are evidence. I started with the basics. First stopped my bank. I walked into the local branch where the manager still called me Mrs. Carter and asked about my knee surgery from 5 years ago. I need to temporarily restrict any automatic payments tied to my address, I said calmly. She raised an eyebrow. Utility access too? Yes, I said. Everything except security monitoring. Her expression changed. Not alarmed but alert. Trouble at home? Potential squatters, I said. That word carries weight in America. She nodded and got to work. Next stopped my attorney, Frank Delaney, a soft-spoken man with a sharp mind and a fondness for bourbon chocolates, had handled my estate planning since my husband passed. He listened without interrupting as I laid it all out. They moved her parents in while I was away, I said. Without consent. Without a lease. Without notice. Frank steepled his fingers. And you have proof? I slid my phone across the desk. Photos. Text. Timestamps. He smiled slightly. Elaine, he said. They didn't just overstep. They exposed themselves. What do I do? You let them finish moving in, he said. I frowned. Excuse me. You let them unpack. You let them establish intent. Then you remind them legally whose house this is. He leaned forward. And if you want this handled cleanly, you do not confront them emotionally. You document. You observe. You wait. I smiled for the first time that day. Waiting I could do. On my way back to the hotel, I made one more stop. The hardware store. I bought exactly 3 things. 2 discrete indoor security cameras. A 1 smart lock upgrade for the back entrance. And a small black notebook. The cashier joked. Spring cleaning. I nodded. Something like that. That evening, Carol called me again. They're really settling in, Elaine, she whispered. Boxes everywhere. Her father parked his truck half on your lawn. Thank you, I said. Keep watching. I didn't ask her to spy. She volunteered. People like Carol, retired, observant, loyal, are the backbone of every quiet neighborhood reckoning. Jessica kept messaging. Mom loves the kitchen. Dad says the garage is perfect for his tools. We might repaint the hallway, neutral tones. Repaint. My hallway. I didn't respond. Silence unnerves people who expect control. 3 days later, Frank called. They filed a change of address form, he said. My grip tightened on the phone. Who? Jessica's parents. To your house. There it was. Intent. They think they live there now, I said. Yes, Frank replied. And that's exactly what we need. I returned to the house at noon on a Thursday. This time openly. I pulled into my driveway while her father, Ronald, a man with a permanent scowl and cigarette breath, was unloading a tool chest. He froze when he saw me. Elaine, he said slowly. Didn't expect you back so soon. I live here, I said calmly. Why wouldn't I be back? Jessica came rushing out, wiping her hands on a dish towel like she was the hostess of a bed and breakfast. Oh, you're early, she laughed nervously. We thought you were extending the trip. I considered it, I said, stepping inside. My house felt foreign. Furniture shifted. Smells changed. Sounds wrong. Jessica's mother, Linda, stood in my kitchen barefoot, sipping coffee from my mug. My mug, I noted. Oh, she said, startled. I didn't realize. It's fine, I said pleasantly. Please, sit. Jessica blinked. She didn't like that. I spent the afternoon doing exactly what Frank advised. Observing. Ronald drilled shelves into my garage walls. Linda reorganized my pantry. Jessica spoke about we and us like it was a done deal. Not once did anyone ask permission. Not once did anyone apologize. That night, I slept in my bedroom, the master. Jessica had clearly intended it for her parents. But seeing my suitcase on the bed stopped that plan cold. She hovered in the doorway. So what's the plan now? She asked carefully. The plan? I smiled. Oh, nothing changes. She relaxed. Good. The next morning I left early. And that's when the trap closed. At exactly 9 a.m., Frank emailed Jessica and her parents a formal notice. Unauthorized occupancy. No lease. No consent. 7-day notice to vacate. At 9:03 the utilities shut off. Everywhere except my bedroom and the security system. At 9:05 the smart lock codes changed. At 9:07 my phone rang. Jessica was screaming. You set us up, she shouted. No, I said calmly. You walked in. You told us to get comfortable. In my absence, I replied. Not to take ownership. Her voice dropped. My parents have nowhere to go. I paused. Then I said the word she never expected. Neither did I when you tried to take my home. By noon Mark arrived. He looked exhausted. Torn. Mom, he said quietly. Why did it have to go this far? I looked at my son, the boy I raised in this house. Because, I said gently, you didn't stop it. He didn't argue. He couldn't. Outside, a second moving van idled. Inside, silence returned. And this time it was honest. They crossed the line. The first rule of entitlement is this. When people realize they can't take something quietly, they try to take it loudly. I learned that by noon. Jessica didn't cry. That should have been my first warning. She paced my living room, phone pressed to her ear, whispering furiously while her mother sat stiff-backed on the couch, lips pinched like she was sucking on something bitter. Ronald stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the street like he expected a rescue. I stayed in the kitchen making tea. Calm unnerves people who came prepared for chaos. You humiliated us, Jessica finally said, hanging up. I looked up from my mug. You humiliated yourselves. Her eyes flashed. We're family. No, I corrected. You're guests who overstayed without asking. Linda gasped softly, hand flying to her chest. Elaine, after everything we've sacrificed. What exactly have you sacrificed? I asked. Silence. That silence answered me. By evening, the retaliation began. Carol called first. Elaine, she whispered. There's a woman going door to door, telling people you promised them the house. I closed my eyes. Of course she was. Linda had always struck me as the type who believed repetition could replace truth. Thank you, I said. Don't engage. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a Facebook notification. Neighborhood Watch Group new post. Sad situation. Elderly woman refusing to help family. Some people care more about property than people. Dozens of comments followed. Sympathy. Judgment. Outrage. Jessica's name was all over it. She was weaponizing perception. Mark came over that night alone. He sat at the dining table, elbows on the wood his father had refinished by hand, head in his palms. "I didn't know they were going to do this," he said quietly. "I know," I replied. "That was the hardest part." I believed him. "They're saying I need to man up and stand by my wife," he continued. "But I never agreed to them moving in. Jessica just decided." I stirred my tea. "Decisions without consent are demands." He nodded slowly. "I should have stopped it." "Yes," I said gently. "You should have." He swallowed. "What happens now?" "That depends," I said, "on whether they cross another line." They did. The next morning, I returned from the grocery store to find the locks jammed. Not changed. Jammed. My key wouldn't turn. Inside I could hear voices. My house. My heart pounded, but I didn't panic. I stepped back, took out my phone and dialed Frank. "They're preventing access," I said calmly. He exhaled. "That escalates it." "It does," I agreed. "What do you want to do?" I looked at my front door. The door my husband once painted red because he said it made the house look brave. "Let's make it official." The police arrived within 20 minutes. 2 officers. Calm. Professional. Jessica opened the door with a smile that cracked when she saw me standing behind them. "Ma'am," the officer said, "we've received a report of unlawful restriction of property access." Ronald started yelling immediately. "We live here." The officer raised a hand. "Sir, according to county records, you do not." Linda began to cry. I stood quietly. Documentation speaks louder than emotion. They were escorted out onto the lawn while the officer explained trespassing laws and the pending eviction notice. Neighbors watched from porches. Phones came out. Jessica's carefully crafted narrative unraveled in real time. That afternoon she snapped. "You planned this," she hissed at me when Mark stepped away. I responded to it. I said, "There's a difference. You want to take my family away." "No," I replied. "You tried to replace mine." Her face twisted. "That house is too big for you." And there it was. The truth. I smiled sadly. It was built for respect. She turned away. By the end of the week, the in-laws were gone. A small apartment. Complaints about space. Blame passed around like a hot coal. Jessica barely spoke to me. Mark called every night. He sounded older. So did I. On Sunday evening, I walked through my house alone. Reclaiming rooms. Returning mugs to shelves. Removing foreign curtains. In the garage, I found something that made my breath catch. A stack of mail addressed to Ronald and Linda Parker. At my address. Bills. Medical forms. Legal documents. They hadn't been visiting. They had been establishing residency. And suddenly the whole picture came into focus. I called Frank. "They were planning something bigger," I said. "Yes," he replied quietly. "And now they're angry." I stared at the red front door. "Good," I said. "Because I'm not finished." The confrontation. The truth has a way of surfacing when people get desperate. And Jessica was desperate. It started with an envelope. Plain white. No return address. It was tucked halfway into my mailbox like someone hadn't wanted to be seen leaving it there. Inside were photocopies, property tax records, a highlighted mortgage payoff statement, a handwritten note in sharp, slanted ink. "This house will be empty soon. You don't need it anymore." I sat at the kitchen table for a long time after reading it. Not afraid, just disappointed. Because that note confirmed what I had already begun to suspect. This had never been about family. It was about inheritance. Called Mark. "Come over tonight," I said. "Alone." There was a pause. "Is this about Jessica?" "Yes," I said simply. Another pause, longer this time. "I'll be there." He arrived after sunset. We sat across from each other in the living room. The space between us filled with decades of love and one very fragile present. I slid the envelope across the coffee table. "Do you know what this is?" I asked. He read silently. His face drained of color. "No," he whispered. "She never told me." "She didn't plan to," I said. "Because if she had, you might have stopped her." His shoulders slumped. "My God," he murmured. "She thought if they moved in it would just become theirs." "Yes," I said. "And then yours. Eventually." He rubbed his face. "She talked about the house sometimes," he admitted. "About how it made sense to keep it in the family." "It is in the family," I replied quietly. "I'm still alive." That hit him harder than anything else. The doorbell rang. I hadn't invited her. But of course she came anyway. Jessica stood on the porch, eyes red, jaw set. "Let me in," she said. I stepped aside. This was overdue. She didn't bother with pleasantries. "You turned Mark against me," she said. I sat down calmly. "You did that yourself." She turned to him. "You told her." He nodded. "All of it?" she demanded. "Yes." Her expression hardened. "So what?" she snapped. "Was I wrong? That house is just sitting there. My parents were struggling. You're alone. It made sense." I stood up. "No," I said firmly. "What made sense was asking." She scoffed. "You would have said no." "Yes," I agreed. "And that answer matters." Mark looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "You were planning to take it," he said quietly. "Without telling me." She threw up her hands. "Families do this all the time." "Not like this," he replied. Her voice dropped. "Fine," she said coldly. "Then let's be honest. What happens when you die, Elaine? Who gets it then?" Silence. I held her gaze. "I decide," I said. "Not you. Not your parents. Not assumptions." Mark turned sharply toward her. "You were counting on my mother dying?" he asked. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. That was the moment something broke. Not loudly, but permanently. Mark stood up. "I can't do this," he said. "I can't be married to someone who plots against my mother." Her face twisted in disbelief. "You choose her over me?" "No," he said steadily. "I'm choosing integrity." She laughed bitterly. "You'll regret this." I spoke for the first time in minutes. "So will you," I said. "But only one of us will still have a home." She left without another word. The door closed. The house exhaled. Mark sank onto the couch. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I failed you." I sat beside him. "You're fixing it," I said. "That counts." He nodded slowly. "I need space from her," he said. "And counseling. And time." I squeezed his hand. "You'll have all of it," I said. "Just not at the cost of your values." That night I made a decision of my own. I called Frank. "It's time," I said. "To update the will?" "Yes," I replied. "And add protections." He understood immediately. Trusts. Conditions. Clear boundaries. No assumptions. No shortcuts. A week later, Jessica moved out. She told people her side of the story, of course. But the truth has a way of outlasting gossip. Neighbors stopped whispering. Carol brought over pie. The red door stayed closed to people who didn't respect what was behind it. One evening, Mark stood in the doorway and looked around. "I almost lost this," he said quietly. "You almost lost me," I corrected gently. He nodded. "I won't forget." But the story wasn't finished yet. Because entitlement doesn't always leave quietly. Sometimes it comes back one last time, louder, uglier, and desperate. The fallout and the lesson. The quiet that followed wasn't empty. It was earned. For the first time in weeks, I woke up without bracing myself. No shouting in the driveway. No unfamiliar footsteps in the hallway. No sense that my life was being rearranged without my consent. Just morning light through the kitchen window and the steady tick of the clock my husband hung the year Mark left for college. Peace has a sound. You only recognize it once it returns. The legal process moved faster than I expected. Frank filed a cease and desist against Jessica's parents for attempted unlawful residency claims. The change of address forms they'd submitted were withdrawn. Any remaining paperwork was neutralized before it could become leverage. They were close, Frank told me. Too close. I believed him. Had I waited even a few weeks longer, the situation could have turned into something far uglier and far harder to undo. That realization sat heavy with me, not because I was afraid, but because I had trusted someone who didn't deserve it. Mark stayed with me for a while. He slept in his old room, the one with the faded baseball poster still taped to the wall. At night, we talked more honestly than we had in years. I ignored things, he admitted one evening. The comments, the pressure. I kept thinking it was temporary. It never is, I said. Not with people who feel entitled. He nodded. I chose comfort over courage, he said quietly. That choice costs everyone eventually, I replied. What matters is that you changed course. Jessica didn't come back. Not for the house. Not for Mark. Not even for her things. She sent a friend instead. Boxes were packed quickly, efficiently, like she'd already planned her exit. The finality of it hit harder than I expected. This wasn't just the end of a conflict. It was the end of a marriage. A month later, Mark filed for separation. It wasn't dramatic. No shouting. No courtroom theatrics. Just a quiet acknowledgement that something essential had broken. She never apologized, he told me. Not once. I wasn't surprised. People who believe they're owed something rarely apologize for trying to take it. Life settled into a new rhythm. I repainted the hallway my color this time. I replanted the garden Linda had trampled. I replaced the smart locks with ones I actually liked. And then I did something unexpected. I hosted Sunday dinner. Not out of obligation, but out of reclaiming. Carol came, the neighbor across the street. A couple from church who'd lost their home the year before. Laughter returned. Stories filled the rooms. The house remembered what it was for. One afternoon, Mark and I sat on the back porch, watching the sun dip behind the trees. I used to think inheritance was about stuff, he said. It's about values, I replied, and whether you pass them on or sell them cheap. He smiled sadly. I almost sold mine. But you didn't, I said. That mattered. 6 months later, the divorce was finalized. Jessica's parents moved states. Quietly. The neighborhood forgot them. Time does that. I updated my will again. Not because I was angry, but because clarity is kindness. Mark remained my beneficiary, but with protections. No one would ever assume again. No one would ever move in uninvited. This house would never be taken while its owner still breathed. One evening as I locked the front door, Mark paused. You know, he said, she once told me you'd give the house to us eventually. I looked at the red door. Eventually is not a promise, I said. It's a manipulation. He nodded. I see that now. The lesson isn't that family can't be trusted. It's that trust requires boundaries. Love without limits invites abuse. Kindness without clarity invites theft. And sometimes the strongest act of love is saying, no, this house didn't survive decades to be stolen in silence. It stood because someone was willing to protect it. And so did I.